Hello everybody, this is Flick King Gamer. So, I kind of want to do something similar to the last video I did, because obviously the one thing that I want to do is just kind of go over just some of the things that I've owned and just talk about some of the stuff that I have yet to watch when it comes to DVDs, because even though we live in an age now where, streaming services are a thing, my 27, soon to be 28-year-old ass is still buying DVDs and watching them on my DVD player, or rather now, my Xbox 360, because the picture's not showing up on my DVD screen. So, what I want to do tonight, essentially, is to basically just kind of turn over and just kind of go through the DVDs that I've collected over the years, with the combinations of, complete series and movies and whatnot. Just so the people who are not aware of DVDs can kind of see what I can see, and I can kind of explain what I watched. So let's dig into the collection that I briefly showed in the last video, but let's get right into it. Alright, so let's just start with a couple of things. So, first off, this was actually something I literally just finished, last night as of this recording, is the original Teen Titans, which were the Titans I grew up with. I literally just finished this series, literally just last night. And it's about as good as I remember it to be, essentially, because it has, a lot of the DVD, has all the episodes. I did come across a couple of snags as I was re-watching the series. There were, a couple of moments in, 3 episodes where the disc would freeze up. It was in Sisters, in the scene where, Blackfire is being introduced to the Titans. I had to, skip over that tired scene. And then another one I had issues with was in, I'm trying to think. I think it was in Mask, where it's basically the beginning opening fight scene where the Titans are trying to stop Slade's robots from getting the red ship, but for some reason it just stopped there. I'm trying to remember, what was the other one that was kind of that ended up freezing. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been the opening scene to Terra, I think, but I can't say for certain. But yeah, that's the first show that I basically watched growing up that I literally just finished. Alright, so next DVD I want to pull out the whole box set is Transformers Generation 1, where it's basically, as you can see, it has all 4 of the DVDs of the first, second, and third seasons, which, honestly, I only got into the Transformers Generation 1 because, I didn't grow up with the 80s cartoon. Back when I did, text reviews back in high school, around my 8th grade year, I actually did a text review of the 1986 Transformers movie, and it's not very good as a lot of my older stuff, but I was able to actually get into the 80s show because of said movie, and then Nostalgia Critics Rater of the Stories, which is not very good, but that's kind of straightforward. So, alright, so now, because the thing with me is that there are some shows that I tend to watch that not a lot of people heard of. And this next show is one of them, and that is Zatch Bell, which is an anime that I see people very rarely talk about nowadays. But as you can see, I have it in its glory of its 2 seasons, though I found out that the first 4 episodes of the 3rd season got dubbed, but they never finished the dub. And to be honest, I really don't get why. But yeah. I have a very obscure anime that not a lot of people heard of, so that's definitely one for the books. Alright, so another one that I have is Soul Eater. So this one I basically got after I graduated high school, and this was right before I went into college for the first time. So yeah, so I have the complete series of Soul Eater. Maybe I'll watch this one around Halloween, but it's definitely a very cool find. And speaking of that, the other show that I actually got before I went off to Mitchell is another anime that's really obscure, IGPX. I remember watching the show growing up, and I remember liking it, but I never finished it. It wasn't until when I was a freshman in high school when Toonami actually re-aired the anime and I was able to get back into it. And in case you're wondering, this DVD complete series set has both the Toonami cut and the production IG cut, which I think the latter is like the, I think it's like the director's cut kind of, where basically it showed extended scenes that I really wasn't familiar with it until like I found a website where I could watch the series in full, and I think I finished it by like, I think a few days or so. So that's another show that a lot of... All right, probably one of my most expensive finds I had, the Powerpuff Girls complete series. This is actually one of the few shows that I have actually yet to rewatch. As you can see, it has all 78 episodes in 6 different DVD boxes. I bought this when I was still living in New York, and the thing is that, as you can tell by the condition, I bought this off of eBay, and this thing was extremely expensive because obviously these things were like very rare. So this I'm definitely going to sit down and watch one day. So that's going to be one of the shows on my watch list. Speaking of eBay, my next piece is actually 2 DVD sets. And that's of another anime that people have not heard of. Bobobo, the weirdest anime to ever be produced. Yet, even as a kid, I found this to be the funniest thing to ever watch. Now, much like the Powerpuff Girls, both of these box sets were like extremely rare, and it was kind of a miracle I was able to find both part 1 and part 2 of the series off of eBay after, I think, going into my sophomore year. I think I was only had enough at the time to get like the first like set, and then eventually the second half was able to come out. And to be honest, I don't really understand why they had to like divide up the series into like the first 38 episodes and then the other 38 to be on like 4 separate discs when they could just like rolled it into one. But that's just me. All right, so I'm gonna continue. Sorry for like the rough editing, but again, I just want to do something fun and just keep going. So continuing on with the rest of the DVDs that I own, this one is very special to me. So the next 3 DVDs I have is of the Transformers series I first grew up with. The entirety of the Unicron trilogy. Transformers Armada, Transformers Energon, and Transformers Cybertron. These were the Transformers I grew up with before Generation 1. Armada, I've only seen a handful of episodes, but I remember enjoying the show, and obviously Starscream had the best incarnations in Transformers, well, ever. Energon, I think I saw it about, like, I'm trying to think. I think I saw it, like, midway through the series. Like, I think basically I began watching Energon when we got into the Inferno trilogy. So that was like over halfway through the series. However, Cybertron of the 3 shows was the one that I remembered the most about. Like, even when I rewatched the series on YouTube in 8th grade, Cybertron was the one I watched first because it was the series I remembered the most. Then, going from 8th grade to 9th grade, I watched Armada, and then I went into Energon. And I enjoyed all 3 of these shows. Obviously, I will acknowledge that of the 3, Energon is the weakest of the trilogy. Armada I found to be very underrated, and Cybertron, well, admittedly, it's my favorite show of all time. I might be biased, but, like, it is literally the only Transformers series that I can actually re-watch and actually finish the series in, like, I think about 2 days. Because I haven't done that with, like, any other show. Alright, so let me just set this down while I pull this out, because I am usually very kind of organized, and I really can do this with, like, 2 hands, because I have to. Okay, so, alright, so, next DVD box set I got is Batman Beyond. Now, I never grew up with Batman Beyond. The only thing I remember was seeing the trailer on Pokemon, the movie 2000, where it showed the trailer to Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. But I never actually saw the series until I actually watched the movie. And then when I was at college, I actually found literally the entire box set when, I'm trying to remember, I think it was FYE, because that's usually where I get all my movies and DVDs when I was at college. So when I found this at FYE, I'm like, I gotta take it. All right, so yeah, and I really did enjoy Batman Beyond, and it's definitely a great show. All right, so now the next two shows are basically in the same realm as the Powerpuff Girls, where these are shows that I grew up, but I have yet to watch. So up next, another one of my favorites. The next two shows I have, Courage the Cowardly Dog and Samurai Jack. Courage the Cowardly Dog is definitely another one that I definitely am looking forward to rewatching. I've only seen like a handful of episodes. I do remember enjoying it, and it's been such a long time since I've last watched it, but I think this is the next one that's going to be on the watch list that I'll definitely be looking forward to rewatching. And then Samurai Jack was another one that I really enjoyed watching, and I was kind of going through a phase a bit when I first watched it. I never saw the 5th season. I think it was just by that time, I think I basically grew out of Samurai Jack, and because the show had ended, I didn't think of bothering picking it up. And because the last season was on Adult Swim, I didn't have the patience to stay up for it. I think I just ultimately just didn't have the patience to just go back and finish the series, I think. So, but yeah, this is definitely going to be another one I'm looking forward to rewatching. All right, and then the last two on this side, at least, of my collection here, is going to be a little bit obscure, but this was another one that I ordered off of eBay. So, and that was basically the VH1 reality dating show, I Love New York. Now, with this one, this was happening while I was at college because I was trying to remember the name of a VH1 reality show that I caught one time when I was in Rhode Island, but I only saw the final form, and that show was I Love Money. So I ended up rewatching that show first, and unfortunately it's no longer available to watch on YouTube or really anywhere at this point. And then I ended up watching the I Love shows of the players that were on I Love Money. So Flavor of Love, I Love New York, Rock of Love, and so on. And it was fine for what it is, but it's just having the novelty of having both of these DVDs, and as you can see, it's basically the unrated version, so you can definitely hear their swear words. And as you can tell by the condition of the second season was very rare and expensive to buy, but it was totally worth it. Both of these shows I never really finished. Well, the first season I finished, but the second season I stopped after the final 4, mostly because it's that I think I just really liked Punk a lot. And of course I like Tailor Made and Buddha as well, but I never actually finished the season because I didn't want to see Punk very heartbroken. And obviously I know he's a professional wrestler now, and I know it's the show, and there's just a lot of ins and outs and stuff like that. All right, so that's the first side of things. I want to see how much more I can get in there because I probably have to go to bed soon. Okay, so I already showed IGPX. So the next two series are the only two series of Ninja Turtles that I've actually watched all the way through. And these are really big box sets. So I have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for both the 2003 series, the series I grew up with, and the 2012 series, which was the series I got into during my freshman year of high school. The 2003 series was the series I actually finished before I watched Teen Titans. And yes, I watched all 155 episodes and the TV movie Turtles Forever. And it's just as good as I remember it. I mean, the last two seasons, I kind of, lost interest in it, and I can understand what the problems with, Turtles Forever. And the 2003 series, I wasn't really able to, finish it, because I think by the time I think by the time we got to like the second or third season, I unfortunately lost all the recordings because we changed TV providers. So I was never able to finish the 2012 series, but that's another one that I'm definitely going to be looking forward to, watching again. All right. So the next one, as you could probably saw, that is actually, I think, like, of my complete series shows, my most recent purchases is Avatar: The Last Airbender. And obviously, I really do like this show a lot, and I can understand its massive following, so I'm definitely looking forward to sitting down and watching this. Okay, and then in the back is another show that I have yet to watch, and that is Steven Universe. So this is definitely a show I'm definitely looking forward to watching. I think because I remember like catching an episode on like TV when I was in Florida to visit my grandparents, and I was just really captivated by the show, and I ended up finding myself like watching it a whole lot. And as you can tell, this is actually the complete series, so it's not just Steven Universe, but it's also the movie and the future. So yeah, those are ones I'm definitely looking forward to. All right, next, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which I actually got at a Walmart last year because I think it was like on sale when it was there. But yeah, this is going to be another show that I'm definitely looking forward to rewatching. All right, and then let's see, what are the last ones that are back here that I can mention? So, all right, so let's pull this out and not screw that over, because these things, I'm always very delicate with my DVDs because I try to preserve physical media. Okay, so next big one is the Animaniacs collection. Now, I've only seen a handful of like Animaniacs episodes, but knowing of how like great the Animaniacs are, and definitely hearing about the revival on Hulu, I definitely felt it was for my best interest to actually get the whole collection on DVD. So yeah, the Animaniacs are definitely going to be another show that I'm definitely going to enjoy sitting down and watching when I get the time to do so. So yeah, that's going to be another one that I'm looking forward to. All right. Let me just put this on the side for now, and then just... because, like I said, I like to have my, DVD collections out, like, evenly and orderly. All right, so let's just pull out the next two really quick. So, all right, so the next two that we got are Gravity Falls and Panty and Stocking. Another anime that I really, really got into recently, but was kind of more short-lived. And Panty and Stocking was another one that I actually bought off of eBay, but I never actually finished it. I finished the series from watching it on YouTube, but I didn't finish watching the series on DVD. And especially because I didn't want to buy it off of iTunes, because I was worried that, iTunes were going to censor, the dubbing. And to be honest, much like animes like Black Lagoon, watching Panty and Stocking without any of the censors or the bleeps, it's that just much funnier. And then Gravity Falls is another one that, admittedly, I didn't really finish. I think the last episode I showed up was the second to last episode before the 3-part Weirmageddon finale. So Gravity Falls is definitely going to be another one that I'm looking forward to rewatching when I do have the time. All right, so then what is next on this side? There's only 3 things left. All right, so let's pull up the next one. So, Jimmy Neutron. This is another one where I do like the show, but I wouldn't really say it's one of my all-time favorites. And admittedly, I was a little embarrassed of watching it, but I think it's just part of that is I think it's another one I might rewatch. And I think the only reason why I ended up buying the complete series was because I think I saw on a Facebook post that, I think it was just one of those things where you had to All right, so this is going to be the third part of this series. I just want to wrap things up and just talk about the DVDs of the complete series. I'll talk about the movies another time because I got to go to bed as of right now. All right, so the last 2 things in this section are DC animated shows. So those being Batman the Animated Series and Justice League, which also includes Justice League Unlimited. Both of these shows I had the opportunity to sit down and watch. And here's the thing. Batman the Animated Series, I didn't really grow up with, because the Teen Titans was the DC superhero show I grew up with. I've only caught like a handful of episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and I think it's only because I got into the series when I got Lego Batman for the PlayStation 2. And then Justice League was a show I definitely remember, because I remember watching that first. I think I was just kind of all over the place with Justice League. I think I was not sure when I finished the series, but both of these are really good series, and I'm so glad to have them in my collection. So that's about it for the top 2 rows. Like I said, I like to keep my DVDs organized and orderly, so that way I can see and put the labels on the side so I can scan my eyeballs of which shows that I have and which ones that I want to put in the forefront to what I want to watch. I know it's kind of sloppy to do it like this, but that's just how I operate, and that's just kind of how I want to do things at this point. So let me. Okay, so all right. So I'm just gonna go through 2 more drawers, and then I'm gonna call it a night, just to wrap up this first part in this series until I get my laptop back. So the shows on the bottom are shows that I obviously have drawers of more shows that people just tend to forget. Well, obviously the first 2 easy ones is that I have the first 2 seasons of Rick and Morty, which I did finish both of those series, and I have been thinking about getting the rest of the series, but I think I just stopped, and I honestly don't know why. All right, now, the next set of DVDs that are all single space are all of shows that I don't think people have ever heard of or really watched or fully remembered. So Wolverine and the X-Men, which was the X-Men series I grew up with, because I remember seeing the promos on Nicktoons that the show was coming out February 2008, and then I think Iron Man Armored Adventures was coming out April 2009. So Wolverine and the X-Men was the series that I grew up with, but I never finished it because it seemed like a long delay from episodes to episodes. All right. The next show is another show I don't think people really remember, SWAT Cats, The Radical Squadron. I remember catching this show in first grade on Boomer Action at 4 o'clock after I finished homework, and I thought it was one of the most mind-blowing shows I've ever watched, and it's a lot more darker than people give it credit for, so I'm actually kind of glad that, I was able to get this when I did, and this was a show that's kind of stuck with me, even though it came out before I was even born yet. All right, so the next show in my collection that I have is Chalk Zone. This was another expensive eBay buy, but it was really totally worth it, because the show was good for what it is, and I definitely think kids can get into it. And it really is still great, but as I said, this thing is very rare and expensive, but I'm so glad I bought it. All right, so the next couple shows is The Oblongs, really a very obscure Adult Swim cartoon that used to show up on Adult Swim at every opportunity, and then it just stopped airing. And given how the show only lasted 13 episodes, it's really hard to understand why. All right. Next, another one, Sonic Sat AM. Now, I didn't grow up with the show. I did see Sonic X, but after hearing the praises of the show, I definitely wanted to see what it was all about. And this was another expensive buy off of eBay, but again, another worth it one. Next, the only other Hanna-Barbera thing I have is The Wacky Races. And obviously this show needs no introduction, and obviously this is the original, not the Lazy as Hell remake that I only caught a few episodes of. I think I only stopped watching this. I did remember seeing all the episodes on the disc, but I think something happened to the first disc where I dropped it or something, and then for some reason it skipped over a handful of episodes on the first disc. So I don't know if I did something wrong with it, but it's not working for some reason. And then last but not least, the most obscure show that I got off of DVD, Titan Maximum. Basically from the creators of Robot Chicken, and is essentially Voltron, but with more Robot Chicken humor. And I like the show for what it is. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but it'll make me chuckle and laugh. Alright, so that's all just the more singular stuff. So now we're going to go through really quick the DVDs that I have and got into a collection form of. I'm just kind of like spacing myself out here again because I like to be organized, as I've said. Okay. Now for the big guns, because obviously this is something that I'm still doing today, but I did as far back as I think even like not fifth grade, my senior year of high school is basically the Power Rangers DVDs, because yes, I am a 27, soon to be 28-year-old man, and I still watch Power Rangers. So, obviously, as you can tell, I don't really have every season post the Neo Saban era. Really, every season before Samurai, because I'm not really a huge fan of Samurai. So, the seasons that I have are Zeo, In Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, which is my personal favorite season. Let's see. Time Force, Wild Force, which was the first series of Power Rangers I actually ever watched. I have Dino Thunder, SPD, Mystic Force, Jungle Fury, and RPM. Now, the thing with the series is that, like, a lot of the in-between seasons before the Disney seasons, most of them I definitely did enjoy. The time frame between In Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force, and Wild Force were like the first seasons I actually ended up getting before I left for college. Then I ended up going to Zeo because of the original, like, Zordon trilogy seasons. Well, obviously, In Space was my favorite of those seasons, but, like, Zeo was, like, a close second. And then after watching Linkara's History of Power Rangers, I ended up, like, having to buy a couple of seasons that I gave not so much credit for. I mean, Mystic Force was another guilty pleasure season, so I was definitely going to get that. But after hearing a lot of good things about SPD, I decided to get that one. Then I ended up buying Jungle Fury because that was a season I needed to give a little bit more credit for. RPM was a season I really wasn't really fond of. It's still not one of my personal favorites, but I definitely understand why people like it. And the latest season that I bought was Dino Thunder, which was basically a season that I know a lot of people enjoy, and basically kind of had to understand, why that's the case. So obviously, as you can tell by the collection, I really have honestly no desire to get any seasons from the Neo Saban era, except maybe Dino Charge, but like Samurai, Mega Force especially, Ninja Steel, Cosmic Fury I haven't even seen, Ninja Steel I've only seen like one episode, and obviously as you can tell, the only seasons that I haven't gotten before the Neo Saban era were obviously the first three seasons of the original Mighty Morphin series, Turbo, Ninja Storm, and Operation Overdrive, because, well, for obvious reasons. Alright, and then the last couple of DVDs on this side are basically seasons of The Amazing Race, which, as I've mentioned in my MLP reviews, was a show that I got into recently. So, obviously, I have collections of the 1st, 4th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th seasons. And the reason why I have these seasons in particular, the first season, my mom refuses to finish watching. And the other seasons, we didn't know about Paramount Plus at the time, and my sister had an account. And because these seasons were, like, not available to purchase off of iTunes, I had to buy these seasons of DVDs just so we could round out the series before we went into season 34. And obviously, these seasons right here, seasons 4, 6, and the Family Edition season 8, are regarded to be some of the show's worst seasons. But yeah, like I said, the only reason why I bought these seasons in particular was because, again, they weren't available to be purchased off of iTunes, and I wanted to find a way to, like, fully say that I actually fully watched the series. And that's basically what it came down to, essentially. Alright, so let's just go through the last drawer, and then I'm going to call it a night. Alright, so last but not least is hopefully a very simplified thing of DVDs. So obviously I have, first of all, because I am still a brony, I have all of the Equestria Girls movies, and if you're wondering, I really don't have any desire to do like any reviews of them. Both the first movie and Rainbow Rocks, I've already done text reviews of both of them, so I don't really think I had any desire, and I don't know about, the friendship games, but, like, I seem to find myself rewatching The Legend of Everfree the most. Alright, now for, like, the really fun ones that excite me the most. So, Saturday Morning Cartoons, 1960s and 70s, volumes 1 and 2, and the Saturday Morning Cartoons, 1980s. Because these were, like, all the shows that, like, my mom and dad grew up with. And I remember getting these for, like, Father's Day. And I remember watching these when I was at my dad in his apartment. And the same thing with, like, the 60s cartoons. And, like, there's a lot of shows that, I never grew up with. And I've only seen, like, a handful of episodes on, like, Boomerang. But I do remember them. The 80s one, I don't even remember finishing everything that was on there because unlike the 60s or 70s that had shows that were more memorable that stood out to me, the 80s were kind of just, forgettable. So that's pretty much all I have on this side. So then let me just set this down because there's a little bit... Damn it. Okay. Yeah, like I said, this is kind of ill-prepared, but, like, I want to do something that has fun, and hopefully I can cobble this all together into one video at least. And hopefully this is not any, like, copyright stuff, because it's just been me talking for, like, a half an hour about, physical media of shows that I bought while growing up. Okay. Alright, so this pile, we have the original first season of Total Drama, which has, the censored version for... a show that was in the early 2000s, and this was kind of like my introduction of, like, competitive reality, even though it's an animated show, and this was before I became a fan of Survivor. Alright, and then the rest I have here is the first 7 season DVDs of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic that I have been very vocal about, and I've complained in my MLP reviews how the 8th and 9th seasons never got DVDs released in the US. And then the next big one I have is the Land Before Time, the complete collection. I think I bought this during my sophomore year at college because the reason why I bought this was because I was a freaking dumbass who liked to torture myself for watching movies intended for kids. And yes, I saw all 14 movies. All of them. And I already made a post of my personal preference, but, like, just for a quick rundown, the first movie is a classic. The second film, Great Valley Adventure, was one of the 2 films I grew up with, and I thought it was decent. The Time of the Great Giving was definitely a little bit better than I gave it credit for, thanking the Hardcore Kid for his review. Journey Through the Mist was kind of forgettable, and I didn't really like it all that much. The Mysterious Island was the only other Land Before Time sequel that I had on VHS. It was stupid, but it was enjoyably stupid. The Secret of Soros Rock was another decent sequel. The Stone of Cold Fire, it was definitely the movie that looked like the movies were about to have a huge budget cut. The Big Freeze, the 8th movie, was actually the only other Land Before Time sequel I actually saw. And that was the movie where I just basically threw my hands up and gave up because I thought it was one of the most incoherent, inconsistent movies I've ever watched. Journey to Big Water was boring. The Great Longneck Migration had some interesting ideas. Invasion of the Tiny Sources was mediocre despite the really, really lazy idea. The Great Day of the Flyers, I think I lost interest after, like, the 20-minute mark. Wisdom of Friends, I hated so much. And then Journey of the Brave was just boring. So yeah, so basically these were a lot of shows and movies that I did watch, you know, growing up, and obviously wanted to purchase. And then the last set of DVDs, let's just get through them, and then I gotta go to bed at the time of this recording, and hopefully I'll edit these together and hopefully upload something to hold you over by tomorrow. And these are all like single space DVDs, so let's power through and wrap this up. All right. So the last set of DVDs I have are like shows in my collection. So first, the Penguins of Madagascar Operation DVD premiere, because I was a huge fan of the Penguins of Madagascar, both the characters in the movie as well as the show itself, but I never actually finished it. All right. Next one I have Star Wars Rebels. I have all 4 of the seasons. I think I've only watched up to season 2. I never actually finished the 3rd and 4th seasons. And I know this show gets a lot of flack because it's not the Clone Wars, but I liked it for what it is. I even liked season 1, and I know there were a lot of people that didn't like it. And last but not least, the really obscure series that makes me really old that I kind of want to show at one day. And that's the Hot Wheels movies. So, the World Race, and obviously the Accelerators movies, Ignition, The Speed of Silence, Breaking Point, and The Ultimate Race. This is the series to show how old I am and how I still enjoy Hot Wheels. You know, because, like, I even went out of my way to actually do what I did almost, like, I think back in, like, 3rd or 2nd grade, where I collected, like, most of the Hot Wheels toys, but I only collected, like, most of them from the Accelerator line, but only a handful of, like, the World Race cars. So when I got into college, I actually decided my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I actually decided to go out of my way to actually purchase all the cars I had yet to buy through a combination of both Amazon and eBay. And yes, I have all 35 cars in the World Race line, and all 48 cars from the Accelerators line. That's how dedicated of a fan I am to this series. And no, I am not the fan to keep the cars in the box. I'm actually the fan that actually likes to pull them out so I could recreate scenes from the movies. All right, and that about covers some of the movies I have, but every complete series of shows that I have on DVD. I wanted to like experiment with this like style of video just to hopefully keep you guys occupied until I get my laptop back in order. So hopefully next time when I'm not super busy, I'll be able to show off my DVD collection of the rest of the movies I have in the other chest. So I hope you enjoyed this little experiment despite a couple of the interruptions, but it was a nice experiment to try. I'm Flick Can Gamer, and next time I will go over the collection of the movies I have on DVD. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.